On last week's episode of the pixelthing, a silhouette on a window of a shaken cabin, summer arrived in style, the War of the Worlds meets the Terminator, and a guy shoots this dude for riding a skate. Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and the Nintendo Wii were the most coveted items of 2006 E3. By that time, Microsoft's console was the only one that was already available in stores, and its main weapon were the exclusives: Fable 2, Halo 3, and Peter Moore's announcement that Grand Theft Auto 4 would have exclusive featured episodic content through Xbox Live. Obviously, those were later also available for PlayStation 3 and Windows PCs. However, all the attention was towards the Nintendo Wii. Huge lines with up to 4 hours of wait time formed just to try out this revolutionary console. Even Steven Spielberg wanted to test this motion-sensitive controller that the Wii is best known for. It was, without any doubt, the center of all game-related things at E3 that year. Wii Sports, a Wii-adapted version of Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, Super Mario Galaxy, Metroid Prime 3, these were Nintendo's highlights. They've also announced the Nintendo's DS Lite availability in US territory, never mentioning Wii's price. This was reserved for later in the year, closer to its launch. Microsoft's press conference was all about games and also featured Bill Gates' announcement of the Live Anywhere service that would bring closer together their 7th generation console and PCs via the upcoming Windows Vista operating system. As for Sony, they've announced PS3 prices and revealed the 6-axis motion sensing controller that was later dropped off and swapped by the version 3 of the good old DualShock with vibration capabilities. Besides all games mentioned before, there were others that also deserve some recognition. God of War 2, Guitar Hero 2, Assassin's Creed, Crysis, Battlefield 2142, Gears of War,
Emergence Day,
Red Steel, Castlevania Portraits of Ruin, and Ratchet & Clank Size Matters.
Ready to battle and back on the PlayStation 2.
July of 2006 was also stage for two awfully sad announcements by the ESA, the Entertainment Software Association: the transformation of the Electronic Entertainment Expo into an invite-only event to reduce crowd, and the banishing of booth babes. So, 2007's E3 moved to Santa Monica and was consequently labeled as Media and Business Summit, dedicated to a restricted group of journalists. In consequence, after the 60,000 visitors of the past year, 2007's E3 had only 10,000 people walking through these corridors during those 3 days. Events and press conferences took place in various hotels in Santa Monica rather than at a specific central location, and small independent developers were hampered and stifled by the big boys. This fact was highly criticized by Maxis co-founder Will Wright. Despite these changes and controversy, E3 was stage of a few good video game announcements by Sony and Microsoft. MotorStorm, that would come bundled with a new 80GB PS3, Halo 3 and Halo Wars,
This is Spartan Group Omega.
Uncharted Drake's Fortune,
We thought. Let's just keep that between us.
Fallout 3, Silent Hill Origins, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots,
He's taken command of this immense army and is now preparing to unleash it.
Bioshock, Gran Turismo 5, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, Resident Evil 5, and Soul Calibur 4, to name a few. On the Nintendo side, there were some peripheral announcements for the Wii. The Wii will bundled with the brand new Mario Kart Wii, the Wii Balance Board, and the Wii Zapper. The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption were also demoed and deserve being mentioned. Second year of the new E3 format that only had around 5,000 attendees, 50% less than 2007's event. Again in LA, and apart from all that criticism, an exclusive Nintendo DS Grand Theft Auto game was announced, Chinatown Wars. This is still considered the best title for that handheld. It was later also available for the Sony PSP and other portable devices, such as Apple's iPhone and iPad, and Android-based smartphones and tablets. Nintendo also announced the Wii Speak and the Wii Motion Plus expansion device for more accurate movement. Also, a Wii Music demo was presented along with some other goodies: Animal Crossing City Folk and Wii Sports Resort. Besides announcements of big updates for Xbox Live and for the PlayStation Network, news from Microsoft and Sony were basically in the form of sequels for their greatest franchises. Resistance 2, Fallout 3, Fable 2, Ratchet & Clank Quest for Booty,
Guys, I'm not looking for any...
Gears of War 2,
An eye to my pledged word.
Resident Evil 5, Saints Row 2,
He gonna need a lot of help.
Final Fantasy 13, and a tiny sneak peek of God of War 3.
We will triumph. In the end, there will be only chaos.
The old E3 is back. And with it, awesome game announcements. Assassin's Creed 2, Forza Motorsport 3, Gran Turismo and Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker for the PSP,
A nation without a military. The people must turn to...
teaser trailers for Crysis 2 and Halo Reach,
Come in. Noble One, do you read me?
Super Mario Galaxy 2 and New Super Mario Bros. Wii, Uncharted 2 Among Thieves,
Here, I've got you. Give me your hand. Just go.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Heavy Rain, Castlevania Lords of Shadow, The Beatles rock band, with the presence of Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr themselves in the stage of Microsoft's press conference, and Red Dead Redemption.
This is the land of opportunity, mister! Force! Force must be used if you're to have your own way.
It was also the year for unveilings of motion sensor controllers, Project Natal from Microsoft, and Sony's PlayStation Move. Sony also revealed their new PSP Go handheld. This year, Ubisoft and Electronic Arts also had press conferences of their own, and was the first time we've had a glimpse to The Last Guardian, the spiritual sequel to Shadow of the Colossus. Now, where were we? Two days before the beginning of the actual 2010 E3 event, Microsoft's press conference convinced the audience with its presentation of the Kinect, formerly known as Project Natal, and various demos were presented live on stage. Dance Central, Kinectimals, Your Shape Fitness Evolved, and Kinect Star Wars. If that wasn't enough, a new slimmer version of the Xbox 360 was also unveiled, and the upcoming Gears of War 3 was announced. Nintendo centered its conference on the new 3DS system and the re-release of classic titles like Donkey Kong, not forgetting the usual announcement of a new Zelda game, Skyward Sword for the Wii, but due to wireless interferences, some technical issues occurred. After Gabe Newell's statement that it was a waste of time to develop games for the PlayStation 3, he made an appearance at Sony's press conference to announce that PS3's Portal 2 was the best console version. Another awesome moment was Kevin Butler's inspiring message to all gamers.
Deep down inside, we all serve one master, one king, and his name is gaming. Forever may he reign!
There was also time for Konami's disastrous presentation. I'm not gonna comment this, it's so freaking stupid. Let's just forget that this happened and watch some highlights of a few of the most important video games present. Mafia 2, God of War Ghosts of Sparta, Call of Duty Black Ops,
Seeing is not believing. Where only a few know.
Test Drive Unlimited 2, The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings, Fallout New Vegas, MotorStorm Apocalypse, Deus Ex Human Revolution,
You'll never find them!
and the reboot of Twisted Metal. As you can see, reboots and remakes come a long way. Another year for portable systems from Nintendo and Sony, leaving Microsoft a step back and completely losing this year's E3. But despite weak Kinect demonstrations, the brand unveiled Halo 4, Forza 4, and the final release date for Gears of War 3. Sony's brand new handheld, the Vita, was announced, and a partnership with AT&T was received with laughs by the journalists present at the brand's press conference. However, this was probably the most impressive piece of technology present at E3 that year. As for Nintendo's Wii U, it was the first 8th generation console to be announced. It was also Nintendo's very first high-definition system that features this unique gamepad with an embedded touchscreen that can, in supported games, be used independently of the main display. Aside from a bunch of Wii U demonstrations and the celebration of the 25th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda, the 3DS also had their own spotlights: Super Mario 3D Land, Mario Kart 7 and Star Fox 64 3D. This was a year of other big video game announcements.
I'm back, baby.
Remember Duke Nukem Forever? It was finally released that year. Battlefield 3, Mass Effect 3, Batman Arkham City, Skyrim, the reboot of Tomb Raider, BioShock Infinite, and Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception.
You're looking for.
2012 was a quiet year. People were expecting major console announcements from Sony and from Microsoft. Nintendo, on the other hand, completely lost the opportunity to really stand out and only showed a slightly improved version of their U console with some tweaks to its controller and main unit. However, 3 titles did impress the crowd: New Super Mario Bros. U, Pikmin 3 and Rayman Legends. So the main attractions were the games, and the one that made people's eyes pop out was Watch Dogs, with its unique style of gameplay and this beautifully designed open world environment. Besides Ubisoft's innovative game, other amazing products were revealed: Beyond Two Souls, Resident Evil 6,
Looks like things just went from bad to worse.
Forza Horizon, The Last of Us, Dance Central 3 with a special demonstration by Usher, Need for Speed Most Wanted, Assassin's Creed 3, Crysis 3, God of War Ascension, Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch,
Why did you set out on this journey in the first place?
and Far Cry 3. Finally, the 8th generation arrived in great style, at least for Sony. 2013 Z3 was one of the most anticipated ever, but Microsoft's recent announcement of DRM implementation and always online requirement for its new Xbox One console automatically opened the doors to Sony's PlayStation 4 ascent to victory, not mentioning Xbox One's $499 starting price against PS4's $399. Nintendo also had a bland E3 with few attractive moments: a new Pokémon for the 3DS, and for the Wii U, The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker HD, Bayonetta 2, Super Smash Bros., Super Mario 3D World, and Mario Kart 8. Nonetheless, Microsoft should be proud of their own Xbox One launch titles presented: Dead Rising 3, Rise Son of Rome, a brand new Halo game, and the reboot of Killer Instinct as a free-to-play game that has all game modes available but only one playable character. Its presentation, however, was stained by an unfortunate comment made during the on-stage demonstration. Konami also celebrated its 40th birthday and showed off some titles like, for instance, Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 and Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Other amazing video games were announced: Need for Speed Rivals,
you can't catch devils with angels,
Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, Trials Fusion, Battlefield 4, Wolfenstein: The New Order, Infamous Second Son, Titanfall, The Crew, The Order 1868, Gran Turismo 6, The Wolf Among Us.
So cost someone their life. Something's going on.
The remake of Rise of the Triad, and the highly anticipated Grand Theft Auto 5.
I think you need a new therapist.
Last year's E3 was one of those that I really enjoy watching. So many games displayed, so many game announcements, and so many promises from the main players. Gamers were amazed by the quantity, but mainly by the quality of the titles that were showcased. Microsoft and Sony pulled off interesting press conferences with pretty solid announcements and video game unveilings. As for Nintendo, and just like in last year's E3, they've opted for a pre-recorded presentation of their novelties and made also some interesting announcements like Hyrule Warriors, Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, Xenoblade Chronicles X, the next Legend of Zelda for Wii U, Mario Party 10, not mentioning this fever called Amiibo. So, I'm just gonna point out a few titles from a huge list of awesome games that were announced and others that had a playable version available at the show floor. Call of Duty Advanced Warfare.
And you think that you can just march into these countries based on some fundamentalist religious principles, drop a few bombs?
Dragon Age Inquisition, Batman Arkham Knight,
Yes, I will love you forever, your father.
Assassin's Creed Unity, Destiny, Tom Clancy Rainbow Six Siege,
Good job, guys. Yeah.
Bloodborne, The Evil Within,
God damn it!
Elite Dangerous, Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, Drive Club, Halo 5 Guardians, Mortal Kombat 10, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt.
Every decision you make will bring devastation.
The Sims 4.
She was forever on a quest for true love, until she met the
Far Cry 4. And Alien Isolation. Also, a trailer for GTA 5 was shown, announcing that a polished version of the game would be later available for PS4, Xbox One and PC. Grand Theft Auto 5 was initially launched in September of 2013 and sold till 6th of June of 2015 for all platforms altogether. More than 52 million copies. What a feat! And we've reached 2015, and what a show it was, starting right off with Oculus VR hosting a pre-E3 press conference unveiling the Rift's final version and showing off all its power through some on-stage demonstrations. Bethesda also hosted its very first E3 press conference and ended up blowing everyone away with this Doom trailer and the official announcement of the release date of Fallout 4. But two of the biggest highlights of the show were Microsoft's announcement of Xbox One backward compatibility and Microsoft HoloLens, that was also nicely received by Minecraft fans, in which I'm not included. My thing is more towards this nice rare compilation of old gems from the past. Then the Electronic Arts conference came along and I simply had to grab my nuts from the ground after this mind-blowing demo of Battlefront.
Incoming fire! We've got to hold this last position! Don't let it fall into Imperial hands!
Apart from this, I just can't quite remember what really happened in EA's conference. I remember Pelé being there, trying to say something to the audience, and that's pretty much it. I really hope that Electronic Arts had learned something from this year's Ubisoft presentation. There was one hell of a press conference with awesome and confident hosting from Miss Aisha Tyler that took us all through this journey of awesome titles. For Honor, Ghost Recon Wildlands, and Assassin's Creed Syndicate, besides others. Now, as for Sony, it just set the whole place on fire. The Last Guardian haven't died despite all the difficulties that the development team had while working on it for the PS3. It seems that Gabe Newell's previous statement back in 2010 was real. Then, the place completely exploded when Shenmue 3 was announced.
Success. When you choose to make it the full-on Shenmue experience, you have dreamed.
And that wasn't the end of it. Final Fantasy VII HD Remake was unveiled. Looks like Sony had been listening to the fans. And to conclude this astonishing press conference, a rolling demo of Uncharted 4 was revealed. What a ride!
Everyone out of the way! It's that goddamn truck again!
Oh, I almost forgot about Nintendo. What can I say about that pre-recorded video? It was bad. Nintendo was completely unrecognizable this year. practically passed unnoticed, cause Sony's press conference was still in everyone's minds. That was probably the biggest problem for Nintendo, from where I'm standing. Moving on, other titles must be as well highlighted. Forza 6, Dark Souls 3, The Division, Rise of the Tomb Raider,
Let's find a way.
Gears of War 4,
Seriously?
Damn it! Back to town!
Need for Speed, Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare 2, The Crew Wild Run, Horizon Zero Dawn,
There's the herd. Finally.
Deus Ex Mankind Divided, Mirror's Edge Catalyst, Mass Effect Andromeda, and King's Quest. So guys, hope you enjoyed this E3 retrospective, and if you missed the first part, go check it out right now. Just click on the rectangle on the left and you're good to go. Please comment, like or unlike, share and subscribe to the pixelthing. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next week.